For such a long time, we have discussed this following question. How can you say that you stand with women and victims whilst also simultaneously supporting Chris Brown and his music and career? For so many people, they feel absolutely no problem separating the art from the artist. Just because an artist has said something problematic or done something crazy behind the scenes in their personal lives doesn't mean that I can't now not listen to their song, because if it's a good song, it's a good song. Who cares who made the music? But for so many people, Chris Brown having such a huge career to this day, despite having such a huge history of violence, is a painful reminder that there's so much that men can get away with, especially with a fan base and entourage of people who don't hold these people accountable. So listening to his music, buying his music, going to his tours and concerts is equally a part of the problem, because why would you want to support a man who has such a huge track record of violence? With the rise of cancel culture, the ball is in our court to drag and expose celebrities. If a celebrity is quiet on a political movement, or if a celebrity has done something that deserves to be called out for, we as social media users, we can drag them and we can call them out day in, day out. And one thing that we can really deeply think about is the question of, is cancel culture something that only really deeply affects and impacts the careers of women? And the reason why I ask that question is because over the years, so many people have really tried to cancel the career of Chris Brown. And I generally actually don't believe that it will ever happen. And let me tell you why. And let's start all the way from the beginning. Chris Brown's former stepfather was a man named Donnell Hawkins, and Donnell was married to his mother after his parents divorced. Chris Brown, unfortunately, from a very young age, had to witness so many horrible things from the hands of his stepfather. He described in his 2017 documentary titled Welcome to My Life about how much of a monster his stepfather actually was, about how every single day and every single night he had to witness and hear his mother being abused by the hands of his stepfather. He spoke a lot about in his childhood feeling so much fear. Even it got so bad to the point where he'd have to just stay in his room and wet himself because he didn't want to leave the room and overhear all the horrible things that was going on.
I had to hear my mom get beat up every night. And I had to pee on myself, like I'm scared to even get up and walk in the hallway because I didn't want to see nothing. Like, you know what I'm saying? So nobody knows that fear that they have to deal with. And then it transcends sometimes, it's learned behavior.
DV is horrible. It is horrible. And it's horrible having to experience and witness it as a child. It's horrible in every single stage, I would like to say. But witnessing it as a child is a deep, deep type of trauma. And one thing that's really hard to reckon with is things that happen in someone's childhood, whether that's good or bad, it really does affect and stay with you for ever. Forever, forever, forever. And it really does affect and influence so much of your decision making and the way that you view and understand the world as well. And when children have to navigate and witness DV, there's so many different ways that they understand and process that. I want to talk about two ways, but there's obviously, as I said, there's so many other different ways as well. Gender definitely does play a huge part to this as well. When we look at this horrible instance of Chris Brown, his stepfather and his mother, for a young boy to... Very hard to say this. For a young boy to witness his mother getting hurt evokes a different kind of anger, a different kind of hatred, and a different level of protection that a child shouldn't have to carry. A child shouldn't have to carry the emotional stability of an unstable man. And unfortunately, what happened to Chris Brown's mother isn't a unique situation, unfortunately. And when so many young boys have to navigate and see this, there's this extra level of protection, this extra level of, I need to do everything in my power to protect my mum, and I'll never be like this father figure in my life. I never want to be like this. I've seen the worst, so I'm going to try whatever I can do to be the best. And a terrible takeaway that we send for young girls who witness this level of DV is, boys will be boys, that's just how men are. And what message does this send to young girls? That you have to tolerate disrespect, you have to tolerate mistreatment, because that's just how men are. I'm not going to dwell on this point for too long, but for so many people, they believe that, oh, we're in a masculinity crisis. Boys are being raised to be feminine. Boys are being raised by single women, single moms. That's why manhood has been going off the rails. But then when you see someone like Chris Brown's stepfather being added into his life, his stepfather is causing fear. His stepfather is causing him to be so fearful of the lives of the people in his house. So it's one thing that deeply frustrates me when people will see like a guy go off the rails or a man go off the rails and instantly be like, oh, that person didn't have a dad. Oh, that person was raised by a single mom, so of course he's gone off the rails. The intergenerational transmission of violence, otherwise known as the cycle of abuse, is the belief that abuse is passed down from one generation to the next, with survivors of childhood abuse having a higher risk of perpetrating or experiencing violence as adults. And children who grow up witnessing DV, specifically from toxic masculine figures in their livelihoods, are at a higher risk of having a life of violence and not knowing how to regulate and understand and process their emotions. Childhood and parental abuse and parental neglect is something that always stays and lingers with you. That's why you can't just turn around and be like, oh, forgive your parents, they didn't know any better, forgive this, forgive this, forgive that. We're going to get into that discussion a little bit more. But one thing that I would say that's very refreshing to see, and it's very very much so breaking generational curses, is people like Jeanette McCurdy. She wrote a book called I'm Glad My Mom Died. And I read that book and it was absolutely phenomenal and it's really stuck with me. So many life lessons from that book. Trust me, there is a reason why I wanted to have that discussion in the beginning of this video. I'm going to move on to my next point, but just keep that information, just keep that in the back of your mind because we're going to come back to it. When people mention Chris Brown and his history of violence, that is automatically synonymous to the Rihanna incident in 2009. I'm not going to talk about all the factors that led to the assault because that's not the purpose of this video. But what I do want to talk about is what Chris Brown actually did to Rihanna. And I feel like so many people actually really downplayed the significance of what he did. In February 2009, Chris Brown physically assaulted his then girlfriend Rihanna, leaving her with severe facial injuries and bite marks following an argument inside the car. He choked her, punched her repeatedly, and threatened to unalive her as well. He beat her to the point where she was actually spitting out blood. And one thing that lots of people say to counteract this is, well, Rihanna was the one who got hurt. And she forgave him. So if she forgave him, why can't we all forgive him and move on from this?
Have you forgiven him?
I have forgiven him. It took me a long time.
But how do you forgive someone who still has a track record of allegations and assaults and violence that is still prevalent and going on to this day? At what point do you say, okay, they've learned their lesson, or it was just a mistake that they made as a teenager, but they've changed as a person now? His next girlfriend, Karrueche Tran, was actually able to get a 5-year restraining order against him. Karrueche Tran's restraining order was able to come into fruition after he said that he was going to beat the of her, punched her twice in the stomach, and threw her down the stairs as well, and also threatened to unalive her as well. So it's always very interesting when people bring up the Rihanna altercation because they're like, oh, that was a long time ago. He's learned, he's grown, I mean, he's matured from that. What's done in the past is done in the past.
Ladies, y'all ever dealt with a nigga that's just be like blowing y'all shit up, hopping gates, stalking the fuck out of you, getting on your nerves? Oh shit. I'm one of them love you bitch, ain't nobody gonna have you. Fuck that. I'm tearing up everything, nigga. If I love you bitch, ain't nobody gonna have you. I'm gonna make you miserable. I'm gonna chase that I'm gonna chase your ass around.
Following Rihanna's attack, Chris Brown was actually charged with felony assault and making criminal threats. He served 5 years probation and domestic violence counseling as well. And one thing that I really want to think about is when it comes to domestic violence counseling and anger classes and anger management classes, how effective really is that, especially when it's been court mandated that a man has to go to these courses? Because someone will look at this and be like, oh, Chris Brown did something very horrible. He served his time. He did his probation. He did his anger management courses. He's good to go. I'm fine to support him now. But when someone is court mandated to go to an anger management class, do you think that they actually want to be there? Chris Brown talked about this altercation in his 2017 documentary titled Welcome to My Life. And it was actually revealed during this time period that he had bipolar disorder and anger disorder, and he attributes so much of that bipolar and anger disorder to his stepfather. He detailed in his documentary about the horrors of what it felt like becoming the person that he feared the most, acting like the person that he feared the most, acting like the person that hurt his mother mercifully. The reason why I wanted to bring this up is because I wanted to get into this discussion on forgiveness. And no, I'm not telling you guys to forgive Chris Brown. That's not where this video is going. Trust me when I say that. In 2022 at the AMAs, Kelly Rowland was presenting for the award for the Best R&B Male Artist of the Year, and Chris Brown infamously won, and the crowd infamously booed him. If you remember that, you remember that.
Chris Brown!
And then Kelly Rowland went on to shush the crowd and wanted to give Chris Brown his flowers for everything that he's done for R&B and just music in general. And even went on to say that everyone deserves grace and everyone deserves forgiveness as well.
Word on his behalf, excuse me, chill out. But I want to tell Chris, thank you so much for making great R&B music.
Let me tell you this. If you're ever in an argument with someone or you're calling someone out and their response to your valid point is saying, everyone makes mistakes, we're all not perfect, we're all sinners, that is an excellent use of deflection. Let me tell you why. The reason why saying phrases like, oh, we're all not perfect, we all make mistakes, we're all sinners. The reason why that is a emotionally manipulative tactic of a thing to say is that it generalizes everyone's wrongdoing and significantly downplays the utter significance of the wrongdoings of what someone has done, especially when they know that they're in their wrong as well. Oof. In those reasons of, oh, nobody's perfect, we all make mistakes, at what point in that statement is there accountability being held? There's absolutely zero accountability being held in either of those statements. It's a deflection. It's a sheer deflection. And I don't know why we live in a world where so many people want to make so much excuses and justifications for the behaviors of toxic, abusive men. And sometimes it feels like it's been like rooted and planted from childhood, from early upbringings, to see toxic men, to see toxic environments, to see toxic relationships, and we kind of just go about and mind our business and just kind of look the other way, don't address it, don't talk about it. So it's a harsh truth when I see people always going up in arms defending Chris Brown. It's reflecting of our livelihoods, it's reflecting of the environments, it's reflecting of the society that we live in right now. We don't even hold men in our present lives accountable for the toxicity that have been bestowed upon us. So why on earth would we cancel someone like Chris Brown? And the reason why his career will always be okay is because every time someone mentioned his history of violence, it's, oh, he was young, he didn't know what he was doing, he was navigating fame, he was going through things, he had a rough childhood. There's always reasons and excuses and justifications. So if you as a fan base, not you specifically, if you as a fan base keep feeding into this ego, keep defending him, cancel culture cannot exist on someone like Chris Brown. If you've already got people who are working overtime to defend you, and it doesn't matter what you do, doesn't matter what you say, doesn't matter how many hands you've put on the women, it doesn't matter because you've got an entourage of people who defend you day in, day out. So when someone like Zara Larsson comes into the scene and says, I don't support abusers, I don't listen to abusers, I don't entertain abusers, Chris Brown is blocked on my Spotify, why is that like a controversial thing to say?
There's so many artists I have blocked on Spotify, and all of them are like abusers. You certainly wouldn't find like a Chris Brown song. Hi.
Why is it a controversial thing to say, oh, I don't support him because I don't support abusers? We're in an era right now where it's like that. People will hear that and be like, oh, that's ludicrous. What do you mean? Chris Brown's the best thing since Michael Jackson. Bold statement. There was a Reddit discussion that I saw when researching this video, and it was titled, Am I legit a bad person for actively listening to Chris Brown? And there was one comment that really stuck with me, with a user saying, I think it's definitely possible to separate the art from the artist. By all means, enjoy the music that's part of you now, but don't allow your fondness for the music to excuse their behavior. And I feel like that final sentence, don't allow your fondness for the music to excuse their behavior, I feel like that really reflects into life, especially within male culture as well. Because I've got male friends, I've got people who I consider like my brothers, my good friends. Just because I love you on that friendship level basis doesn't mean that I'm not going to hold you accountable. Doesn't mean that I'm going to, just because you're my best friend, I'm going to defend you through thick and through. No. And specifically, even more red flag, if you don't show any remorse as well, if I don't see you actively trying or apologizing or admitting that you're in the wrong, I don't want to be around. In October 2024, a petition to cancel Chris Brown's South Africa concerts was launched by the advocacy group for Women for Change and garnished over 50,000 signatures. The main ethos for this petition was to stand in solidarity with survivors of DV by refusing to glorify those who have perpetrated abuse. Also going on to say, let us use this opportunity to show to the world that South Africa will not tolerate violence against women in any form. Together we can demand justice, respect, and safety for all women and girls. And you know what? Chris Brown commented under the Women for Change Instagram account, can't wait to come, love heart emoji. It's great to think about, despite all the scandals and allegations that Chris Brown has gotten himself into, it really hasn't significantly affected his career because he still has a prevalent fan base. He's even going to be on a co-headlining tour alongside Usher this year, so, and honestly, that stadium is going to be full. That's not a surprise in the slightest, unfortunately. Virtually impossible to close off this video on an optimistic note. The thing that I will say is that I'll continue to use my platform to advocate for the protection of women and young girls across the entire world, and to shine a light on amazing groups like the Women's for Change group in South Africa, which are doing amazing work for the protection for women and young girls across South Africa. And I also want to say as well, like, advocating for the protection of women and calling out toxicity and toxic men, that's not a bad thing at all. And I think we've got to a point where people brand it as like, oh, you're crazy or you're doing too much, or you're a simp, or you're gay if you defend women, like, which is an insane thing to say. It's an insane thing to say. It's not an insult. It's stupid. It's not a crazy or insane thing to say that I'm not supporting this person because of the horrible things that they've done to women. That's not a controversial statement at all. And it shouldn't be. It really shouldn't be. And I'm going to close off this video right here. I know it's been a very heavy video, but it's necessary that we have these conversations. It's necessary that we call out bad behaviors, because that's the only way that we're going to see change and betterment for the future for young women and young girls. Please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. The things that Chris Brown had to witness and endure from the hands of his stepfather are really, really horrible. And I feel a lot of empathy and sadness for the things that him as a child that he went through. The harsh thing about this is childhood trauma isn't justification for your wrongdoings. However, it is a big, huge leading factor as to why somebody can go off the rails. When researching about his stepfather publicly denied physically abusing Chris Brown's mother, which I call BS. I call BS. So that's why I hate this whole notion and discussion of you need to forgive, you need to forgive, you need to heal and forgive. Healing doesn't always mean forgiving. Healing doesn't mean going back to the people who have caused you trauma, because those people can't even look at themselves in the mirror and be like, you know, I did something wrong. Or they can't even look at you and say, you know, I've did something wrong, you know. They can't. They can't. So what's the point of being like, oh, forgive this person, forgive this person, forgive this person, who can't even admit their fault at all?